Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning back into Small Town Johnstown Podcast. I'm your host, Nick.
And Jenny.
And we're here today with Tom, a director from Rising Fear. His movie did sell in, outside of the United States, very popular, and inside too. Where did you direct that at?
I directed it mostly here and some stuff in Pittsburgh.
I do remember you telling... Sorry.
It takes place in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But I used a lot of Johnstown to double for Pittsburgh.
I do remember saying that you couldn't use the incline here. They won't let you get on for that one scene, so you had to go in Pittsburgh.
So in the movie, the guy jumps off the roof of the, what do you call the...
Incline?
Yeah, but I'm talking about the place where the car comes out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, the garage for it.
Mm-hmm.
And he jumps off the garage onto the incline plane. And it taking place in Pittsburgh, he's doing it onto the Duquesne incline plane. And you can't jump on that one either. Okay. And so the Johnstown incline plane had a double for the Duquesne incline plane. Mm-hmm. So with the special effects we had on the side of we redid the carriage with CGI to say Duquesne.
Okay.
And then because it switches back to the shot of Duquesne and the carriage going down the hill, so we had to make it look very similar. But yeah, and then I jump off the garage onto the incline plane.
Incline cargo thing, whatever it's called.
Yeah, the carriage.
The carriage, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it hard, or did it take time to do that effects to make it the Duquesne sign and look like Duquesne?
I don't want to ruin it, but I took the shot of the incline plane in Johnstown disembarking from the garage.
Okay.
And I took that same angle, and then I went into my driveway, and I got up on the wall. There's a wall in the driveway.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to do something really cool, like jump, down.
Yeah.
But I ended up kind of hesitating. But it made it look more realistic.
Yeah, I mean, you're jumping off something.
It made it because you think you're going to and then like a cartoon character, but you don't. And then so I jumped off the wall and went onto the driveway. And then in the computer, rotoscoped me out and make sure the lighting is going to be correct. Make sure the sun is at the right place so the shadows are going in the right direction and everything. And then I just rotoscoped myself onto the top of the garage of the incline plane.
Okay.
And then with the Duquesne making that, I did that in Photoshop. Okay. And I had the words Duquesne written out on it. Yeah. Made it match exactly.
Oh, wow.
And I was very happy with how it turned out.
I mean, I'm sure some people are going to tell a lot of people are going to tell the difference. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was your inspiration for directing The Rising Fear? Because I know we talked about when I was in your class that you really loved the Batman and Christopher Nolan movies.
Yes. Growing up, I loved Die Hard.
Okay.
And the 90s action movies, Speed and all that. And I just always wanted to do an action movie. And The Dark Knight was a big one for me. That was that's a good movie.
The greatest movie of all time. Other than The Godfather.
So the question was, what was the inspiration for doing it? Do you mean practically or artistically?
Artistically.
Artistically, it would have been those kind of movies like Die Hard, The Dark Knight, The Bourne Identity.
What about the concept of Rising Fear?
Okay, the concept of Rising Fear. The premise in the story is that this guy is on a bus and a pretty girl gives him her phone number and he calls the number and then ends up detonating a bomb. Mm-hmm. That came from just that anxiety of when you call somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's always been a reoccurring thing with somebody calling somebody on the phone.
Not knowing where it goes to.
Especially another girl. You're going to make that phone call. And then a bomb goes off. And so that's where it came from. That kind of
that fear.
That kind of fear. And I remember the original inspiration came from, I heard this song by the Four Tops.
Okay.
Called Shake Me, Wake Me. Mm-hmm. It's a great song. If you've never heard of it, listen to it. It's a great song. And I remember I had a dream that night that I heard it, and the dream was that song was playing over the credits of the movie to be made. And I thought that kind of hyper, almost comedic, but not. you know, it's still serious. And so that was where the inspiration came from.
That's funny because whenever I listen to music, I get a big, like, I have a vision. Like, it helps I create a whole world.
You visualize the song and what's happening, especially if it doesn't have a music video already. You just kind of make up your own story in your
own head. You're seeing your images.
Yeah, I'm seeing my image of like how I would create a story for that song.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how people, especially directors, maybe think like that. Just listen to something and you're able to create a whole new story just based off of that.
Yeah.
And then you can really run from there.
Yeah, that's pretty much all listening to music for me. I almost have trouble listening to music. Like, I can't just listen to music for the sake of listening pleasure. It has to be, if I hear the song Layla from Goodfellas, it's like I picture that scene.
Yeah.
Or I picture it in my movie, you know, and having that same kind of feeling.
And it's always a credit scene, too. I feel like for me, it's always an ending.
Yeah,
It's always an ending to something because that's where you get the goosebumps.
Yeah. You're right. That's where it comes from. It's like, this would make a great ending song.
Yeah. So then, how can I finish go from start to finish?
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. I remember hearing the one song by Prince, Raspberry Beret.
Raspberry Beret. Yeah.
And I remember I was driving home and I heard it and I thought, this would be a perfect movie for like. And this was before Stranger Things. And I was like, this would be a perfect movie or perfect song for a movie about, like, you know, coming of age, like a horror movie for 12, 13-year-olds. Like, you know, those are the characters. And then you have this song playing over the credits. I was like, then, you know, but it was like, well, what's the story? And you're like, I don't know. And
I'm not there yet.
You know, but it would just be like, yeah, that song. That's the feeling.
I got really good. I like People Are Strange by The Doors.
Oh, that's a great one. Did you ever see The Lost Boys?
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
I love that song. Do you like the version of that song that I always liked? Not to get nerdy, but
every episode of the podcast.
We're all just nerds.
Is Nick and the guests geeking out.
I remember I heard that song in the movie. And I was like, I want to hear that song. People are strange. Yeah. And and they say, oh, it's by The Doors. And then I listened to it, and it's like, no, it's not the song. Like, it's
okay.
And then I kept, because my sister had all their albums, and I was like, it's okay, but it's not. That's more.
It's not the one you want.
Eco and the Bunnymen.
Okay.
They're the ones who did that song. Okay. And just because I got the album. And I was like, yeah. That's the one. I'm always like, I was listening to the Ghostbusters theme on YouTube the other day, and it didn't sound right.
Okay.
And I was like, this is a re-recording. Do you ever have that feeling where you know something is a re-recording? You're like, no, I want the original. Like,
maybe her more than me.
Me listening to Taylor Swift's re-records, it's like, this isn't the same.
This isn't the same. It's off. And so like now with the Doors song, that there was the original, and then the Eco and the Bunny there was a remake. But sorry to get off on that tangent.
No, you're good.
That's okay. Every episode ever. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about the premise of Rising Fear. How does one just go about creating or directing a movie in the first place?
You have to emotionally, you got to ramp up to it. And I kind of am in that process right now where every time you do a movie, you're like, I'm never doing a movie again.
I've heard that.
He did say that when we did the class. I'm out. I'm done.
I never want to do it again. And then the one I had done before took 2 years to do. And then it was like, okay. And then you get tired, but then you work back up to it. And you're like, we'll do something small. That's how it starts. We'll do something small. And then you get into it, and you're like, okay. Then you write the script, and you know the momentum builds, and you find yourself neck deep in it all of a sudden, and you're there. So it's just like you ramp up to it, and you almost lie to yourself a little bit. Mm-hmm. You're like, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Then one day you're like, okay. It's a pact you make with yourself, and you know what you tell other people really doesn't equate into it. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. You tell people your fears and your worries, and you just really kind of convince yourself.
Right, because it's such there's artistically it's draining, but practically it's draining. And getting all the people together in the script and taking the risks of are people going to show up, and especially if you're doing a no-budget movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you have to ride that roller coaster of, are people going to show up?
Okay.
Or we're going to get half a movie in a can, and then everybody's going to move out of town.
Yeah.
Something like that. So...
Yeah, because it's a hard commitment. It's like you said, 2 years.
Yeah, it takes about 2 years. Depending on the movie itself, it takes about a year to 2 years. Rising Fear took 4 because of the special effects and just the general, expansiveness of the movie. And so that ended up taking a long time. And then I was composing the music for it. So that was something I didn't do on the first one or the previous movie. I just used library music on that one. But then for Rising Fear, I used all my music. But that's another topic. Music. You get to be careful. I can get off on tangents.
No, we're here for it.
You say, speaking of music. No.
I was about to ask you, how was creating your own music? How this?
That's like one of my dreams and aspirations is just to be able to put any kind of music together at all. Let alone the score for a whole film. How do you do that?
He's over here being like Dr. Dre just with the...
It's I don't want to say I have zero musical talent, but I was never seen as a musical person. I didn't do well in music class. I had chorus and I didn't care for that, and that was I'd lip sync. But I loved and playing the piano was always intimidating, and I would try to learn every once in a while, but it was really something I had to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn how to play the piano. And I started teaching myself that. And then I got Logic Pro. And then I discovered the concept of MIDI, that MIDI. I remember I used to always think of music, and I think a lot of people think this, music making or composing is the guy with the wig on and the quill at the piano, or the conductor, and that's what I always thought it was. And no, nowadays you can peck in the notes by hand, and then the computer will read it out. And that to me that was the game changer. And I thought, I can do this. I get that. I don't get the guy standing up with the wand. Yeah. I don't get that. I don't get getting 100 people in an orchestra. That's not for me.
Yeah, I think that's people confuse composing and producing. When you think composing, that's more of what you think of.
Well, that's the thing.
But you're still making the music. It's still the same concept.
Even if you compose, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And you're and so you're like, well, no, that's the thing. You're composing, and then the computer will trigger sample libraries of somebody playing a violin.
Yeah.
And once you realize that and you see it, you're like, the only thing stopping me is me.
Yeah.
And you're like, and learning music theory, and you're like, I can do it. And then because I've always had a passion for music. I like some, I don't know, call it pop music with lyrics in it. I always like the Talking Heads.
Any Paul Simon.
Yeah, anything that would be used in a movie, I would be like I remember when I was younger, I'd listen to a lot of... Did you ever see the movie American Graffiti?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay. I love the soundtrack to that movie. Okay. And that got me into 50s, 60s rock and roll.
Okay.
And so I always loved music and how it can take you places, like you're talking about visualizing and everything. And I just wanted to be able to do it. And now... but it took years to learn how to do it.
Yeah, for me... When I think of music, especially movies, the person that did the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack and even the Dark Knight soundtrack, I always thought it was them actually sitting writing the little musical notes on a piece of paper.
Funny enough, he's one of my favorite composers, Hans Zimmer.
Yeah,
and I used to think the same thing, that he's conducting. Because and where that comes from is, I think when you're a kid, especially if you grew up in the 90s. And when the Star Wars movies were re-released, they would show footage of John Williams, the conductor or the composer of the Star Wars music, conducting the orchestra. And you think, that is a great song. I love that song. And the Imperial March and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you think, but to get that song, you have to do the thing with the wand.
And the writing of the notes.
And the notes. And you're like, well, that's... But then I learned that Hans Zimmer composes mostly on the computer with the MIDIs, and he has a master class where he shows he uses Cubase or some Sibelius or some other program, not Logic. I was amazed. It was researching Hans Zimmer stuff because I love that score to The Dark Knight, and I wanted those kind of sounds in Rising Fear, and I found a synthesizer, and it's called Zebra. Zebra or something like that. And they were like, this is the synthesizer that Hans Zimmer used to score The Dark Knight. And this is the one that he uses. I was like, I gotta get it.
I don't care the price.
I don't care. Just give it to me. And they have all he has all his presets on it. Oh, I was in heaven. So like you just get really into it, and I love that synthesizer, and I love synthesizer. Not to get onto that, but yeah, synthesizers. Yeah, and then that helped a lot. I found what's called an arpeggiator, where it goes arpeggiator. You just hold a note down, and it'll repeat the note again and again and again and again, and it goes, and I'm like, that's the sound, you know. Mm-hmm. And then if you hold 3 notes or 2 notes, it'll alternate back and forth. So it'll go do 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 do.
Oh, okay.
And you're like, oh, that's what I want. So like,
you start to think like, I'm pretty good at making music.
I got it.
This sounds professional.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, arpeggiating and a lot of the Hans Zimmer music is arpeggiation of dun 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 dun.
Yeah. And
you're like, yeah, I want that sound. And you're like, okay, and not just, but once you see it done, you're like, oh, now I can have that same Batman. Look, you don't get the same Batman music, but like, I had such an appreciation for what those guys and gals do. The composers, I can't remember her name. She did the music for Chernobyl and The Joker.
Okay.
And they're phenomenal scores. Or
I love Chernobyl. Chernobyl's a good show.
Yeah, that's a great show. And you really get into these scores that, you're like, they're geniuses.
Yeah.
And
because it enwraps you into that without even seeing, like, without even watching it. Like, sometimes I'll throw it on YouTube and be like, I'll feel like, oh, I'm a pirate. I'm Jack Sparrow right now. Right. And I'm like, I've been watching the movie.
It's amazing.
I want to keep talking about music, but I also want to backtrack and ask, because you talked about getting, the group of people together for the movie and hoping people show up. How many people worked on Rising Fear, and how do you get that many people to get together and coordinate?
I was very lucky to know very good people whom I still know, but I don't see as much anymore because I was in my 20s. We were all in our 20s when we did that.
Well, 5 years ago?
No, that was that I can't believe that movie was we shot that in 2012, so that's 13 years ago. So that's like a ancient history. And but a lot of the people involved in the movie were first and foremost friends and family. Mm-hmm. That's where it starts. Mm-hmm. And it really starts with your social network. To put a phrase on it. What happens is if you get excited about something, you've been really excited, you're like, I can't do anything else. I'm sitting inside and writing my script or whatever. Mm-hmm. And other people see that. I think it's contagious in a good way. Yeah. Not to put a negative connotation to it, but it's they really they're like, yeah, I dig this, and then you're like, will you help me? I need you to play a cop, or I need you to play this or that, or a terrorist or whatever. And I'm like, okay. I was fortunate enough that I had done movies before, and so I had a bit of a history of being the movie person, and then they would say, okay, well, he's going to get it done. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was just in my head in terms of like...
Your confidence?
Yeah, well, like, I'll get this done, because I never wanted to be that person of, like, I'll say I'll do something and then never do it. I was like, you kind of need that track record, but I always had help. Mm-hmm. Even from the first movie onward, I always had a group of friends that were good enough and to help. And I say, when you're looking for people, look first for character, not talent.
Okay.
Because
I agree with that.
Yeah, because the character, they'll show up. It's hard work, and that's the other thing too. You get one shoot, maybe 2, before people find out like what movie making actually is, and it's moving furniture. Okay. And then they're like, I never want to do this again. So you get that one day or whatever, and then you have your really good friends that like they keep coming back, and they're like, it's their day off.
Yeah.
But that's why. So the way I started out, talking about this was that's 12 years ago, And what happens is you get into your 30s and people start getting married and they move away. And
Yeah.
you know, and that's
Already filmed that.
and that's that's life. I mean,
Yeah.
and you just can't be 18 forever making movies. And there is a clock ticking. I was very fortunate to be able to have childhood friends. Be at a point in my life where I had childhood friends, college friends, and your 20-year-old friends.
Yeah.
And then by the time when you get in your 30s, you have like maybe 2 friends, and not that there's ill will. Just people.
Everyone just moves away.
People
and does
move
different
away.
They have different lives.
Right,
And life happens. Okay.
and they're still your friends. I consider these people still great friends. You're just like
You just can't bring them into town 12
Hey,
hours a day to
hey,
work on a film
come on,
for 2 years.
Let's make another movie about terrorists. Or whatever. No,
I'm gonna need your 8 hours on a Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah, I got a job. People have kids.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're not the most. Your movie is not the most important thing in their life.
Got a bunch of kid actors though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can move on to that, and then and
A good family film.
it's that would be a great sequel to Rising Fear with like all kids, and But I guess then looking to the future, and this is for myself, and it really depends on what age bracket you're in. If you're listening to this or you're interested in becoming a director and you're 12, you're right in the ballpark because you're in the middle of middle school and high school, and you've got more friends than you don't know how good you have it.
And you don't even need to be good acting because they're like, oh, it's middle school people.
Right, and it doesn't need to be any good. You will think it's good.
Yeah.
And if you do anything when you're 12, it's amazing. So that's when you can really be starting. And then high school, you're still it has to do with friends.
Yeah.
And then you go to college, you have friends. Your 20s, you still have friends, and I'm just thinking about it now. It's a shame as life goes on, people move apart.
Yeah.
And you really have to. Directing is all about marshaling those resources from a social network. But I was very lucky to have good friends.
Dang, I'm 18 years too late.
I was gonna say, yeah.
No, I mean, but in your 20, you're in a perfect time now when you're in 20s. Because now, see, you have something that you didn't have when you were 12, which is you have a more developed brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's helpful.
And you can like, oh, if only I could have done this when I was 15.
Yeah.
Like I started, I'm taking a color correction class and I'm adding film emulsion to my camera tests. And I think, oh, if only I could have done this when I was 16 or 15 and if only I knew, like, if only I could just go back in a time machine, which is ridiculous, but that's the wish, and just help myself make movies. That's what you guys have working in favor for you is you know more.
Yeah.
And you're more mature, and you're not,
Yeah. I'm thinking of what movies I would have made if I was 12. I don't know. Would have been
Concerning. Mine are pretty questionable.
they come to you. You like. Now, and I have that problem now. I'd like to make a movie, but I'm like, about what?
Yeah.
And it's different than there's 2 types of scripts that I've always written, and I think anybody writes. There's the dream script, and then there's the let's get down to business script.
Yeah, serious script.
The dream script is like, okay, we're gonna have like armies of dragons and we're gonna have this, and we're gonna have helicopters colliding into buses, and we'll have and you're like, okay, that's never gonna get made.
Yeah.
Or you're only gonna get to make that if you get the carte blanche check one day. You need to get practical and think, what do I have available? And then what can I make a story out of that? So I got to get down to that business. That's at first uninspiring because you're like, what am I going to do? But then you kind of get into it and you're like, it'd be cool to do a movie like Memento.
Yeah. Oh,
something like gritty and just people and something like that.
Or like a Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, something like that. Something small,
Yeah.
And, like I remember the movie The French Connection.
Okay.
By William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist. That was always an inspiring movie, both of those movies. But the French Connection's are really gritty and it's kind of intimate, small, but it's a powerful movie.
Yeah.
and you think I could do. You tell yourself I could do something like that.
I can figure this out.
Even if you can't, you get the feel.
You fool yourself into it.
Great art makes you feel like you could create great art. That's why we were talking about Hans Zimmer, and I saw him playing on this masterclass video, and I thought, well, I can do that. I can make that sound, and now I can't, but I get that inspiration.
Yeah, it's motivational to see what someone did. Okay, I can do that. I can do something similar to that.
Exactly.
And for me, it's like I always want to use like these woods and really just capture the sound of the woods and use that for like eeriness, for like a horror movie and stuff.
So you're talking about the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, something
like that.
Maybe not like handheld, but maybe something kind of like that. Definitely use like because I love woods that use use scenery. Like, what's that one movie with Robert De Niro, Reindeer Man, or
The Deer Hunter?
Deer Hunter. Like in that hunting scene, they use the scenery.
That's a great
to
movie.
Tell so much stuff. And you just hear the wind. And you hear,
so
like,
the
deer.
Deer Hunter, you see that's a powerful movie, and you see that movie, and you're like, I have woods like that.
Yeah.
I could make the Deer Hunter.
Yeah.
Something
like that.
Yeah. That's power of great art. You see that, and you're like, well, what am I doing here? I could
put a camera right here. Just let the wind go, and I have this little scene.
Yeah.
Because like when we drive to Altoona and stuff, you get pretty much that beautiful mountain view, like right there.
Well, I believe they shot that movie around.
It's in Pennsylvania,
here, somewhere.
Here,
I couldn't tell you the place, but I know it's somewhere around here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember looking it up. It's somewhere in PA.
Yeah,
that mountain stuff. But yeah, it's just like you sit to yourself like, oh, I can definitely just put a camera right here. If I had a drone, just capture this. Just let the scenery, let the environment tell the story itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best.
So leading into my next question.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, you gotta make do with what you have, and we have like the woods and different things like that in Pennsylvania. So how does a 20-something-year-old come up with the funds to make an entire movie?
You don't. That one, and you don't, and I think that a lot of time gets spent on, and I tell myself this too, of where am I going to get the money? Mm-hmm. Especially when you're making your first movie, you want to make a no-budget movie. Mm-hmm. Because the thing about money is expensive. And whatever dollar you spend, times it by 10.
Okay.
So let's say you raised $10,000. Mm-hmm. What you really needed to have raised was $100,000. Because as soon as one person's getting paid, then another person's getting paid, needs to get paid too. Mm-hmm. And then you might dealing with unions. We're straying from the question, but I'm getting to the point, which is, I remember writing about this in my book, and I can't grasp it cogently. Mm-hmm. But, to sum it up, but you need to make a no-budget movie. Because by making a no-budget movie, it will force you to recognize that you already have the resources to make a movie. Mm-hmm. And that resource and that capital is time.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have the time. And that's really the most precious commodity is time. And that's where we go back to, I would go to my friends. And the capital that I was expending was really my friends' time. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say they were generous enough to help be in a movie or hold the camera or whatever. And that's when you think about it, the real resource that you're working with is time. And so a typical movie takes 30 days to shoot. Mm-hmm. And even a low-budget movie takes 30 days to shoot.
Only 30 days?
Well, 30. I mean, it depends. Like, Titanic takes a year to film, But on average, it's about 30 days, 60 maybe. It depends. Low-budget movie, it shouldn't be more than 20 days. Okay. I mean, but you will get those 20 days, but they will be spread across time.
Okay.
So you'll have a day here, and then you have to wait 2 weeks. Mm. And you have to sustain that
momentum.
Yeah. So the real problem in making the no-budget movie is sustaining your own momentum over that time. And, that's hard. That's hard because you get bogged down very easily, and you're like, oh, and then you get the footage, and you're looking at it, and you're like, oh, it's not that good. And,
this doesn't look like...
Yeah, this doesn't look like the Deer Hunter.
Yeah. And then a lot of people would give up over time,
and you give up. You give up, and you have to have an almost obsessive nature about yourself where you say, I don't care about the quality. I don't care. I just want to get it done. I have to get it done. You have to get that in your head of like, I want the thing. I want to be able to watch on my TV. That's where you'll find your resources, in that willpower, which I have none, but
I'm slowly getting myself.
it's like, most people don't I don't, but like movies have always brought out the best in me. That's one of the reasons why I miss them is again, they bring out the best. I've always felt that bad times can bring out maybe not bad times, but maybe adversity. Hard times can bring out the best in people.
Yeah, pressure creates a diamond.
Right, exactly. Something like that. Yeah, that's a better way. I'm trying to come up with a cute way of putting it. And that's probably the better way of putting it. When you don't have anything to do, you're just going down a drain.
If you don't have that motivation or goal to get up, then you will just get into a
vicious cycle of laziness. And I know sometimes like I get down on myself, like, well, I didn't do this, I'm not accomplishing anything. The podcast really forces us to have some kind of deadline and do something.
And you don't maybe not for everybody because people have like the gym or whatever, but you don't have that motivation to even keep up with yourself, like good habits. So just like, well, this is my life. You'll start eating bad, not going to the gym, and just kind of like coming.
It's hard to stay disciplined. Especially in a low income place like Johnstown.
Yeah. I mean, once I met you and we weren't doing this, I was like, oh, well, that's it. That's my life. I'm good. No, I was joking. I don't need to keep up with my parents no more. That's good that, you really find out who you are through the beginning stages.
Yeah, you find out who you are. When you're in film that's the challenge because it's so hard to do. And you've got to fight to do it.
Yeah.
And, it's not easy. I remember you used to think my life would be a lot easier if I didn't have to make movies. And you think, you're like, oh.
Yeah, why did I choose this for my career?
But really, for me, it was never a choice. It was like, I have to do it. And because when you don't do it, that's actually harder.
Because you always
doing
have
a
that.
podcast, then like what you're doing here, this is easier than not doing it, and because time is flying by.
Yeah, trust me.
We're just whoosh. But if we were like watching reruns of Happy Days or whatever, the time would be going slower. So if you want to get, it's harder to do nothing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Because I'm one of these people, I like to do nothing, but I like to just hang out. But
so do I. But then I get that tick in the back of my head. Man, you just really did nothing all day. You're a lazy person.
I struggle with that every second of every day. I was like, I need to do something. I need to be productive. Can't just watch TV all day. Got to clean this. Got to do that. Got to meet this person. Edit this podcast. Whatever it is, I'm always having to need to do something.
See, that's for you every day. For me, that doesn't start hitting me until it's been like a week. And it's like, oh man, I do nothing
wait,
all
what
week.
What did I do this week?
Usually I'm just like, watching football, chilling. And I'm like,
but
this is nice.
That happens with a lot of people, and that's why some people I think are so miserable because they don't have something that drives them. And over time they realize, years have passed and I've just been working this 9 to 5. I don't have a passion project or something.
Yeah, they don't have that they'll always have that what if in the back of their head.
That's why you got to start when you're 12, because even if it's awful, it shows that you've always had drive since you were 12 years old, making stupid movies with your friends.
Right, exactly. What you're talking about, the time thing, when you realize where have the years gone. And I kind of realized a little bit of that with myself where I was like, in the time that movie, Rising Fear, came out and today, I could have probably made 2 movies. At least 2 movies. And I'm like, wonder what those movies are. Like, even just now, admitting to that, on tape, I'm like, oh, wow, I feel kind of crestfallen about that. And I'm like, what could those movies have been? But that's exciting in and of itself. But like, I don't want it like, okay, then I could make 10 movies. I don't want to let too much time go by.
Yeah. So then what I do that helps me, I'd be like, well, I could have made 2 movies. I didn't. I took some time. Why waste more? So then let's going.
Let's start a movie today.
Yeah, let's start moving.
And not tomorrow, today.
Yeah.
You got to start today. That's the thing to always remember. You got to start today. Now, do it now, not tomorrow.
We're still working on that.
Yeah, I'm a tomorrow guy.
I'm big tomorrow
My
guy.
mom's always telling me. I mean, it's tomorrow. It's always later. And I'm like, whatever the thing is, whether you something small or a movie, you're gonna sweep the carpet or whatever. It's always later.
I know. I gotta force myself to start. She gets on me, but I'm getting better.
Yeah.
You
Just
know
gotta push them a little bit.
It could have been a good no budget movie. And I'm not saying this movie was no budget because it definitely did. But Mike Myers, that
You mean Halloween?
Halloween, yeah.
Oh, that was one of the big inspirations for me. That's that's the John Carpenter. He did the music for his movies too.
But I feel like it's a small neighborhood. You just have some dude walking around in a suit with a mask, and then actors, and you're using real houses to kind of shoot. So I mean, obviously there's special effects and the fake blood and everything that you gotta like atone for.
That's one of those great works of art that you're like, I could do this.
Yeah, so I'm saying it's a good it could be a good no budget inspiration.
Yeah,
Instead of something like, for me, it's Game of
Avatar.
Thrones. It's like, I'm not going to be able to afford the CGI and these big elaborate sets and costumes.
It's a great show, but you're like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was a show, The Sopranos.
Oh, I love The Sopranos.
Yeah, and I remember thinking like, oh wow, you
just driving around Jersey.
Yeah, just like it looks like Johnstown too, and then you could create that kind of great work. So that's another example of. Mm-hmm. But the Game of Thrones will get you like, oh well, I can't.
This will never be me.
I'll never make that, but
can't do Fast and Furious either.
Yeah, but that's another one where you're like, I don't know, get the cars and stuff.
So I have a question. How did you get the fake officer suits? How did you get the permits to cut off streets to do your shooting and your filming?
With the officer suit, do you mean?
Because you had like cop cars and you had like cops and stuff.
The one guy that had military fatigues on. Mm-hmm. I have a friend.
This is where the friends come into play.
I had a number of friends in the military, and they loaned me military fatigues. And then, I mean, you could get that at the, Army Navy store but I wanted the real thing. And you can find that here and there. Again, that's what you have access to.
Yeah.
Something like that, if you don't have a friend or somebody that can loan you, that would be worth buying. Okay, so the cop cars. There's cop cars all over. You just get your camera and you're like, you get a quick, goes by, and then really, what you should do, just to make it easier.
Be careful though. Don't go recording random cops.
No,
will stop
what you should do is just go ask. Just be like, will you drive down the street really fast with your lights?
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard. That's hard to do.
It's a little nerve-wracking.
I was gonna say I'm more of a don't ask for forgiveness instead of permission person.
Well, that's a good line of thinking to have too. Better to just do it than not.
Yeah, because for me, it's like, okay, record the cop or ask the cop, and then they write you up for like harassment or something.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, you have to think like you get lucky. You see, what do they call that? Preparedness meets chance, something like that. You get lucky. Like, I remember we were filming Emulation. We were filming on a Sunday, and it was like this time of year, and we were filming, and all of a sudden, my friend and cinematographer on that film, Matt Meehan, he said, look, and I could hear this, and I looked up in the sky, and there were these Apache helicopters in formation for the Steeler game.
Oh yeah,
and they were approaching us. I mean, it was like the clouds opened up, and we got both the cameras, and we were just filming, and we were filming, and we were like, this is gonna be perfect for the chase scene. In the movie, it cuts to those helicopters. It's so great. Like, that was like the greatest day of my life on those helicopters. Or
that's why you gotta start just recording random things. What's this for? I don't know. We'll figure something out.
We'll use it later.
Well, you gotta be mobile enough and ready. You gotta be ready for stuff like that, or for whatever reason there's an event or like a concert or something. There's cop cars everywhere, or I don't know, and you just have to be fluid enough to catch it. Because you're not gonna buy it. In Rising Fear with that Apache, now that was tough. Getting that scene with the Apache helicopter chasing us, that's a lot of CGI and a lot of stock footage and a lot of like pulling. I thought I was going to do a lot of 3D modeling of the helicopter, and that only amounted to a couple of shots. What I ended up doing was I found stock footage of an Apache helicopter, and then I would extract it from that with a luminance mat or something like that, and then I would rotoscope it into the picture.
Oh,
And that worked well enough.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What would you say is not worth spending the money on for a no-budget film?
It depends on what your purpose is. I remember telling this to Nick in class about.
I don't remember.
Well, okay, but I remember
Probably not.
that you have your two purposes. You have your movie that you're making to get better, okay, and you want to have your calling card to get into the film industry.
Yeah.
The problem with movie making, the problem with the industry, and it took me too long to figure this out, is that it's all about celebrity.
Oh yeah, I remember this now.
And so I can say the most useful thing that you can spend money on, not to not answer the question, but the most useful thing to spend money on is a movie star, which is why you see the same people in every movie. And I'm not a fan of the celebrity game. Because it's something I never understood. It's something that, like, especially our culture is very celebrity obsessed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Sadly.
But when you're doing that first movie or whatever, the question was, what's the thing to
Not spend money.
not spend money on? A movie star.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it's going to be very tough to sell the movie, because the first thing they always ask whenever you go to sell the movies, who's in it. But for the purposes of when you're starting out, I remember writing in my book about the most expensive thing on a movie is talent, and that's the thing that you're developing. So you don't need to spend money on that.
Yeah, like you said,
now.
Shoot for the character, not for the talent.
Exactly. But if you're making a big movie, you need that anchor, that financial anchor of a movie star.
Somebody that like you can put a little back into, like, oh, okay, well, you have him.
Yeah,
we're
that's
good
why
to
you
go.
do see a lot of bigger actor names in like Sundance films and
Yeah,
stuff
right.
Like that.
3-4 movies.
They'll spend a significant chunk of the budget on the person.
Yeah.
And it's because that person has a fan base. And I used to always say best movie director would have been Kim Kardashian,
Yeah.
because she gets the game.
Yeah.
She's a uber celebrity, and she could get any movie made. But she's not interested in making movies. She's interested in doing something else or whatever. Or Paris Hilton would have been a good movie director.
Taylor Swift could have been a good actor.
Taylor Swift would have made
Just a 30-second clip would have got that movie $1 million.
Well, that's why you see so
Yeah.
often, like, you're like, why is, this pop star in a movie?
Yeah.
Well, because they sell tickets. That's it. Doesn't matter what tickets.
Like when Ed Sheeran popped up in Game of Thrones. What's going on?
You're right. You're like, that they were probably thrilled just to get him.
Yeah.
So,
Like LeBron was in like a rom-com. It's like, why is LeBron in this rom-com?
What is happening?
Because LeBron has fans.
I mean, that's like one of, in fact, that's a nightmare scenario where you're making a movie. The producers are like, oh, well, so-and-so is interested in this. And you're like, oh, no. Then you got to put him in, or he or her, or him or her, or whatever, and you get it. Now the thing's going to be about them, because movie stars, they pull attention.
Yeah, they'll take
to
away
them.
from the other actors
Right.
and other people.
No, like
that-
I get it 100%, but sometimes when some big, huge name shows up, it like throws me out of the movie because I'm like,
Right.
oh, it's them. Why are they
Kit
here?
Harington.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet you can empathize with that, because it's like, imagine you're filming a movie, Leonardo DiCaprio walks by,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, get him in the background.
Yeah.
And you like do the scene with him in the background, and you couldn't resist. And it's like, why is he in the movie? Well, because he was there. And
Yeah.
I that's something like that happened. I was filming Rising Fear. We were filming outside the Melon Bank, and the Ectomobile pulled up from Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay.
And the camera, I panned down from it was perfect. I thought of it as a good omen, but as the camera was panning down the building, the Ectomobile pulled up. And I was like, that is so cool. And I was like, I could have the Ectomobile, because it was like legit the Ectomobile. It wasn't like it was a professional made. And I was like, that would be so cool to have the Ectomobile roll. But it's like, why is there a random Ectomobile? You're rolling into your
Got
shot.
nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah, but I was like, but it's so cool. It's so like,
We're part of the Ghostbuster universe.
Well, I
Yeah.
do like Easter eggs like that sometimes. It's kind of how they worked into the film.
Yeah, just I mean, well,
Depends
this
on
was
how
like
it's done.
really blatant. Like, you know, it was.
It's gonna be maybe in the background somewhere.
I was like, so yeah, this kind of ties into improvising. So you got to find something to do with this or whatever. But I was like, no, nothing. Or like, you know, more germane. I'm a cat guy, and I've got cats, and so I had the camera and I would be filming the cat, you know, and the cat would do something funny or look a certain way, and you're like, oh, we can use that shot
Yeah.
somewhere else. And then, you know, people like seeing cats, and so.
So, in Rising Fear and in your previous films, I know looking back at it, so there's a lot of... Did you ever get a clip that wasn't in the script or was improvised? Like with Al Pacino when he was like, I'm walking here in that movie with New York. That wasn't in the script.
That's the best stuff.
Yeah. So was there any...
That's the best stuff. There's a scene where these two guys, it's the scene where the bomb techs, the SWAT team has just invaded the one house and they're hanging out. And they just found the main character just found out that the terrorist attack wasn't a terrorist attack. They're gonna kidnap the president.
Yeah.
And these two SWAT guys are talking, and they start laughing at one another. Mm-hmm. You don't know what they're laughing at.
Yeah.
But like that they didn't know they were being filmed.
You pulled a Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, well, I was just filming, and they were just kind of standing there getting ready, and I was like, oh, that's really funny. Yeah. And it's like I love like little flashes of reality coming through, and the guy made some sound, and it made the other guy laugh, and I was like, oh, that's great. I wish I could like do the whole movie like that.
Yeah.
And I like that's why I was like, never stop filming. Like when you're filming a scene, you like never ever stop, because like don't be like, oh, I blew it, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, don't do that, because it's like that's when you're like in it and you're like da, 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 and then you're like and you're like, yeah, but that's real.
Yeah.
I love that. That's I'm a big fan of that. I like that kind of improv. And
How hard was it to get the permission to block off streets and record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that you don't.
I was gonna say no.
I mean, really, you know, like maybe if you're in New York City or Los Angeles where they're so used to people filming stuff, but like if you film that anywhere else, people, it's kind of like the thing that you have to watch out for is people will want to come find out what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
and then it interrupts the shoot.
Right,
Unless there's like a big car chase or something, you just keep on filming.
Yeah,
I
you
never
just
shot a
keep
film
on
before,
filming.
so I don't know.
But you have a big camera and everything, and then everybody wants to come over and see, and that's I don't know. Maybe you should ask for permission. I don't know.
I'll just give people a heads up. Hey, we're filming here, people. We'll ask questions. We'll answer questions
Yeah,
later.
I mean, it depends on you. If you're filming flashing guns around or something, I would. But again,
yeah.
that I would. I remember with Emulation, I wanted the FBI agents. There's a chase scene through Oakland down in Pittsburgh. And I wanted the FBI agents to have guns. And I remember I tried to, and there's one scene where the guy fires the gun in the middle of the street. And I tried compositing it.
Yeah.
And I was going to put the gun on a green screen. And I don't know what happened with it, but it just didn't work. Maybe I was able to do it without showing the gun or whatever. And it looked better. For that, I would green screen.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't
start
running around with guns.
Yeah.
Flying
I was thinking
everywhere.
because I was thinking like the car chases you had in Rising Fear when you were driving. Maybe that was just a still shot, and you're just kind of
I would green screen that in. I don't think at my age now I would do the car chases anymore. Just because I was like, I don't know, we got lucky, and I don't know, you don't know any better when you're that age.
You're just kind of young and dumb, and you're just going with it.
Right. I don't think I'd do that anymore. I drive under the speed limit now. So.
Yeah, same. I'm actually a little under the speed limit.
All right.
So, where did you go to get your degree in movies? And
Well,
directing?
I got a degree in communications from the University of Pittsburgh, cum laude. That's how you say it, cum laude. Got with honors.
See, that's her, not me.
I was very proud of that. And then I went to Edinburgh, which is now Penn West Edinburgh, and I got a degree, master's in communication. So I never got a directing degree, but I always. So if you say where did I get my education from, it would be books.
Okay.
Lots of books, anywhere I could get it from. Yeah. And back in those days, YouTube wasn't around.
Yeah.
So it was most books. And then your experiences. So that's where I would get it from.
So being from Johnstown, what was it like transitioning to a bigger city in Pittsburgh, which isn't even the biggest city, but still a decent size?
It was big for me. It was big.
Because I remember you talking about it in class, how like you were scared at first.
I was pretty spooked about like going to a big city, just because it was like I was a junior and I transferred down to Pitt from UPJ. I didn't know anybody, or my friends they were living together, and I was just so I look back on that now. I didn't understand at the time. I was getting inspired because I was going around, because that's when I made Emulation, and I was going around and I was seeing all the streets, and I was like, oh, this would be this architecture here, this guy running down the stairway. This would be a great scene for something like you get inspired. It's good to have those kind of shakeups, and I'm unfortunately more of a homebody, so I tend to avoid shakeups like that. But that's what you need. You need to have. I remember I went to the Bare Bones Film Festival in Muskogee, Oklahoma. I think I'm saying Muskogee,
yeah,
right?
I think it's in a song. There's a song that says Muskogee.
Yeah. I went there and it was just like, oh, you could shoot No Country for Old Men here.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, right.
And
I got really into it, and it was like, and then it was, you get it's like you go dust something off in the attic, and you get excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's good for you.
All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. Anybody you want to give a shout out to? Any plugins? Any advice you want to give out real quick before we hop off?
I'd say you treasure your family, your friends, and your teachers, because those are the people that really care about you, and those are the people that have always cared about me and helped me the most. So just that.
And where can they get your book and Rising Fear or any of your other previous titles?
You can get Rising Fear, my book, How to Make Blockbuster Movies and Do It on Your Own. All my books, all that stuff on Amazon. You just type in Tom Getty into Amazon, or you go to Google, type in Tom Getty. You can find me anywhere.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you again very much for coming on.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it both.
Again, this is Small Town Johnstown. I'm Nick with
Jenny.
And we were with Tom, interviewing about his experience as a director, coming from and being from Pittsburgh and Johnstown, and directing The Rising Fear. Thank you for coming. Thank you guys for listening, and have a good day.